Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Going On with Shaun, a variety podcast grounded in marketing, but with an appetite for quality conversations about things that make life worth living. Time is precious, so thanks for tuning in today as we find out what's going on with Jamie Adams. What is going on with you, man? How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. You know, all things considered, and for the audience, it's important that you know that this podcast recording is happening as coronavirus pandemic seems to be sweeping the globe. It's right in the middle of March of 2020. So, it's a little crazy times right now, huh?
I'll tell you what, I never thought, if you'd have asked me a week ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if I ever thought we would live through anything like this in my lifetime, I would have never imagined it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think it really makes you, at least for me, it's made me, hit the pause button and kind of enter into that mode of gratitude because all things considered, for those of us that are fortunate enough to be, citizens and call the U.S. home. I mean, we're just experiencing a glimpse of some things that unfortunately other people in other countries and other parts of the world have to go through on a daily, and not just because it's pandemic driven, right? But if you just think about, countries that are maybe ruled and different types of government set up where government uses fear monitoring, which a lot of what we're experiencing today is driven by fear. And it's very real, and I'm not suggesting otherwise, but the same feeling that we're going through, this scared, panicky kind of reaction that we're all experiencing on some level, I think everybody's experiencing it. Those are things that that is a mentality that is that rules people in other parts of the world on the daily. So it stinks that we're doing this. I hate it. I hate it for a lot of close friends of mine. I hate it for a lot of people who I don't know that you just see things on the news and how industries are being impacted. But at the end of the day, I am very grateful that, that we live in the country that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. I did a impromptu. I've never done it before. Actually, every time I've gone Facebook Live, I think that I can remember. You've been there. My buddy Dan Matson's been there, or maybe Arnold Arena's been there because it's usually at concerts.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
I've never gone Facebook Live where I'm just sitting in my office and finding out who wants to participate in some conversation. And I did it Sunday night. To my surprise, there were several people, family and friends, that chimed in. And I think I'm going to do it. I might even do it tonight again. It was interesting, though. One of the things that I really had not planned, but very much tried to do with the folks that were tuning in was kind of speaking to what you're talking about. This is such a time right now where if you're able to encourage others, if you're able to help them face what fear they're feeling, I don't know that you could give a better gift to somebody right now than to help them relax, help them not be gripped with fear. Because fear, if you really think about it, it steals every great thing from us.
That's right. It does.
It just comes and robs us of, accomplishment. And, if you're happy, if you're feeling content, if you're feeling, like things are just in the right place for you, fear wipes it all away. And, no, we've never seen anything like this. It is one of those things that you kind of wonder how we're going to talk about it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now. Certainly will be something that goes down in the history books long after we're gone. And it's worthy of thinking about. But yeah, it is really, really a good time to also take stock in the fact that we're here. We're in a great country, a strong country. it's hopefully a good time to help people also consider putting all the petty stuff down, right? It's when it's all said and done, maybe it's just time to stop the nonsense about, who we don't like politically or for any reason, actually. Just maybe it's a good time to hit that reset button on perhaps, humanity and decency and kindness and generosity and charity, and all those things are things that we should be really mindful of as opposed to being just selfish and chasing after everything for ourselves.
Yeah. And the last 30, 45 seconds is why I love you so much, man. You're always, I've always found you to be super thoughtful and very honest, which I love, but at the end of the day, just very thoughtful and caring about others. You truly do. I mean, I'm a big part of my being in sales and being in marketing. But a big thing that I focused on methodology-wise the last few years, and I've studied a lot in sales process, is being others-focused. And you're always others-focused just in how you live your life, man. I appreciate it about you.
Well, that's a super nice thing for you to say, man. I appreciate that. I really do. You and I, for the listening, and then the audience that may also watch the video captured version of this podcast, probably have no idea how you and I met. So tell people tell
the story.
People, yeah, where that goes back to. It's a pretty good one, actually.
It's a good story. Yeah. So all right. So you and I met. It was either end of 2007 or beginning of 2000. Actually, I think it was the beginning of 2008. It was Digital Dealer 2008. And it was in Las Vegas, and I was at a company called Reach Local. Some of your listeners may be familiar with Reach Local. And there was a guy that really close friend of mine to this day, Seth Winter, and I had been tasked at Reach Local to kind of grow the automotive business and help more automotive dealers and tier 2 groups and OEMs to the extent possible with their digital marketing. Specifically at the time, it was, really Google AdWords. Yahoo was still, I guess, had decent market share back then, which is kind of crazy. It's how much that's changed. Anyway, fast forward. So we go to Digital Dealer in Vegas, and we Seth and I both pretty self-aware guys, know what we know what we don't know, and we realized that one of the keys to helping us, capture more market share more quickly in automotive would be to look for influencers. Again, very underused word back in 2007 and 8 relative to now, but look for influencers that understood digital, that we thought we would jive with, on a personal level. And I remember vividly, man, going through the Digital Dealer website and coming across your picture. And then that was when you had really cool hair. Your hair is still cool, but that was back in the day where you had really cool hair. And I was like, all right, this guy, we got to meet this guy. So, we stalked you to the extent that was possible in 2008 online, tried to learn as much as we could about you. And I remember standing, another interesting thing about that time was when Seth and I went to that conference, Reach was still very much in kind of the startup mode. We had just raised our Series D round of venture capital, but it still very much operated like a software business. And I think that's the conference where Reach said, hey, we'll pay for the booth and the space, but you actually have to pay for yourselves to go to the conference. So, which actually I'm a big fan of that methodology, because when you do that, you invest in that yourself. When you're at the conference, you're going to be serious about being at the conference, right? You're there to network, to win business, things of that nature. So I remember standing at our booth. I remember Seth was, in an effort to try to attract people into the booth, there was that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian, that scene, that YouTube video where he's like doing the, he was out on the beach and they like substituted like fluorescent swords, like Star Wars lightsabers, and he's swinging them to this tune of like techno music. Anyway, Seth thought that would be a good idea to attract people into the booth. I still to this day don't feel like that was the wisest plan, but regardless, it got you to come over, and we introduced ourselves, and I think you kind of looked at me like shocked that I knew so much about you. And I just said, hey, look, I don't know what you know about Reach Local. You said I know probably more than you think I know, and not all of it necessarily highly opinionated at the time. And I just said, hey, look, we want to do some things differently. Seth and I are kind of tasked with leading the charge in automotive, and we would love to collaborate with you. And then that led to a friendship, which led to you joining our board of advisors, our first board of advisor across the entire company. That was the beginning of where we are today. Still a really, really great friendship, and several more years of working and collaborating together in different ways. And of course, I know you've kind of stayed put in the automotive industry, large in part. My career kind of took a different turn, both at Reach Local and then when I left Reach Local in 2013 to where it is today. But we're still in this digital marketing thing. We're trying to help local businesses take advantage of digital marketing and technology to attract and acquire and retain customers so that they can continue to produce revenue for themselves.
I love stories, period, not just ones that involve me. I love real stories. I think they connect us with people on a deeper level. And I have always loved the story about meeting you and Seth. It was one of those moments in my career that, there was a part of it that was a bit flattering. And then I also remember feeling a little bit like, this is a little strange that these guys, are that interested. And as you remember, I had more of a sour taste first impression on Reach Local, really because of what happens a lot in the car business anyway, is like there are some knee-jerk reactions. And then there's also, you mentioned influencers. There's a handful of people that even today remain probably among the top influencers in automotive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're trustworthy. Just because you're an influencer doesn't mean that you should be trusted.
Sure.
Some of them, yes. But anyway, I remembered that my impression was kind of sour. It was very skeptical for sure. And then over a process of months, especially when you guys finally got me to come down to the Plano office and you're like, this is what we really wanted you to see.
Yeah.
At that point, I just had all kinds of ideas firing off. That was really fun, actually, to collaborate with the two of you, because your work ethic and your passion to figure it out and get Reach Local on the map. I remember, I think you called personally, or maybe Seth helped a little, but I think I remembered you saying that on the Nissan project that you called like every Nissan dealer in the whole country.
I called, man, it's funny enough, in I have a Dropbox folder that when I started at Reach, we didn't have CRM. So our CRM was a combination of either Google Sheets, which was an archaic product back then, or Excel.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So Seth and I found this, there was no Upwork or any of these kind of shared work for hire sites at the time, but somehow or another, Seth found a resource that was able to go basically mine data for us. And we got every Nissan, Mazda, Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep dealer. We got all of them into different tabs in a Google Doc, and that was my CRM. I would just, for every instance of call that I would make on a day or a week, I would just create a new column. So after a while, I just had to shrink the doc so I wouldn't have to scroll endlessly. But man, there was a while. It was crazy, man. It was fun times, man. But there was a time where for Mercedes-Benz and for Toyota, I could tell you the name of every GM in the country for those dealers.
Isn't that crazy?
Every single GM. And it was great because back in the day, this was all Seth and I's primary means of business development and selling was cold calling. We were in Shreveport, Louisiana, of all places. And we would actually come in on Saturdays because you knew you could not get the GM is not here today spiel on Saturdays.
That's right.
Because, of course, they're there, right? Those are the days that deals get done. Yeah. So we would come in, and we probably got more appointments just doing something like that early on, especially before we had any, had any references. We just had to get people on the phone. And those were fun times, man. But yeah, I did. I called them all, and I called them tens of times in an effort to just get to know them, for them to get to know who I was, to try to build a relationship and some value, and then eventually, hopefully, get them to buy from me. And honestly, man, I'm really proud of those times, because I've got relationships with people that I don't do business with anymore. In some cases, I haven't seen them in a decade, but we still keep in touch online. We actually, some of us call each other occasionally. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons I love to be in sales, man. Even when you're thinking about prospecting and making calls, it's not just about the transaction. It's not just about the purchase that you get someone to make or someone decides not to make. It can be about much more than that. And that's why I've always loved sales. When I got into sales, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, because I thought it was all about the transaction. That's what I put in my head. Mm-hmm. And then when I started doing it, I was like, man, it's so much more than that. It's like the perfect alignment of my personality and the way that I want to connect with people. It's just putting, some economic value to it in some ways. And then I try to use the benefits that come with that to help other people as well. So, that was a little bit of a rant, got a little philosophical rant there, but yeah, man.
Good. That's really good. I'll tell you, I actually learned things from both you and Seth. It was a new part of business that I hadn't previously really been involved with, as far as paid search and that part of digital marketing. I was very, very heavy on the websites.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I really I loved the fact that I could tell this from how you conducted yourself personally and getting to know you in terms of friendship. And you mentioned something about, transactions. Relationships are always built typically before a transaction. And if you built a good relationship, even beyond the transactions, that the relationship's what remains. And you were doing that from the time I first met you, obviously, and how you guys were campaigning and building up some leverage for Reach Local to expand what they were doing in automotive. You guys cracked the seal open, really, and had a foundation for, by the time that that role of being advisory guy went into, hey, come in and be director of auto. Yeah, it was prepared for us to do bigger things. And without that work, I don't think we would have chased down some of that business. I remember even kind of collaborating and really putting together the meeting so that you could be the one literally specifically sitting right next to John Hatcher from AMSI, because I knew John and had known John for years, but I knew that he would really appreciate having the touch points of Reach Local directed really primarily through you. And then after that, we parlayed, having a little bit to end up having, I think, almost every single piece of AMSI's business for a long period of time. And then parlaying that into what happened with Group One and with Vinny. And so I look back on all that time with a lot of fondness, probably just like you, because there's so many people that I'm still connected with. And it's a great memories. But I want to make sure that I shift, actually, not downshift, but upshift into the fact that neither of us are at Reach Local anymore. Good luck and well wishes to everybody. I love to compete. But you are at Scorpion Digital Marketing now as the Chief Revenue Officer. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I know a bit about Scorpion, of course, but the audience doesn't. So give us before I dig in a little bit on maybe some specifics around some of the digital marketing stuff, tell us a little bit about Scorpion, just in general, what businesses that you guys serve and kind of the space that you're playing in.
Yeah, so we work with businesses across kind of 4 primary vertical segments. Legal, so we work with a lot of attorneys. It's probably our largest customer base today. We have about somewhere between 6 and 7 attorneys that we work with: personal injury, criminal defense, family law, immigration, employment, etc. So that's one segment. Home service businesses, so plumbers, HVACs, electricians, garage door repair, pest control, etc. Healthcare, which is clearly an interesting time right now. So large hospital organizations, Methodist here in the DFW area is one of our clients, all the way down to the small businesses, so dentists, primary care physicians, et cetera. And then finally, we work with franchise businesses. And, you call them franchise, I'd call them multi-location businesses, but it's typically, with the exception of automotive, we don't have any new automotive customers. We do have some automotive service and repair customers, like Christian Brothers Automotive, who you're probably familiar with. Mm-hmm. But multi-location businesses whose brand is very clearly very important to them, but they also need lead generation strategies, customer generation strategies for their local franchisee community. And we are the web infrastructure, the organic search service provider, the paid search, paid social provider, and we give these businesses technology to evaluate the efficacy of the services we're providing. And we've got a reputation that I'm really, really proud of being a very, very high touch, customer focused organization. And that's really what drew me. Funny story. I got to know Scorpion because I was a bit of a customer of Scorpion when I was at Reach Local. So Reach had a relationship with Scorpion where Scorpion built websites, white labeled websites, for our customers at Reach for a while. And I got to know Rustin Kretz, the CEO of Scorpion, through my role at Reach Local, and I was kind of already on the way out the door. And honestly, it's kind of funny, man. I mean, just when you know, good people. The feeling I had talking to Rustin was very much the feeling I had the first couple of times I talked to you. Just newest stuff, very, very others focused. Had some great ideas, and then when I left Reach Local, he and I stayed in touch. And then a few months later, he was like, "Hey, we should do this again. You should come do this with me again." And, so yeah, we've gone from we're a private company. There's a lot of good things about that. Having worked at Reach whenever we were private, but kind of VC backed, and then we went public. So we're a private company, but we've had really explosive growth. We've gone from about $36 million in revenue year one when I was there in 2014. Sorry, it was not year one of the company, but my first year there in 2014, we did about $36 million in revenue. Last year, we did over 300. Wow, so we've had really, really great growth. And honestly, what I'm most proud of, though, I'm not no BS on this. It's a great culture. It's a unique culture. And it's been tough to maintain that from 150 employees to now we have over 800 employees. But we've been really committed as a leadership team, and Rustin's a great CEO, a great culture CEO specifically. And we've been able to, large in part, maintain that culture as we've grown. And I think that's been a big key to our success. And at the end of the day, we're in the client service business, and our business does not flourish unless our customers flourish. And it's just been, I think that's what I'm most proud of, is in the growth, just maintaining that culture the way that we have. And it's been a lot of fun, man.
That's great. I mean, there are a lot of people that talk about company culture, and they are just so full of it. And I'm trying not to use any well-placed profanity, even though I'm a fan of it on my podcast.
Me too.
But, there's just so many people that talk about it. That it gets brought up in conferences, I'm sure, across multiple industries, but certainly in automotive. And this isn't me. I'm not thinking of a individual person. So if anybody's listening to the podcast thinking that your name's coming to mind, it's not. So get over yourself. But in general, the culture thing, because this happens again, it's not just the auto industry, but when people are desperate for culture because they realize that they don't really have one that's authentic, and if they do have one, and they're asking this question, what they do have is probably toxic culture. And so people start looking to Zappos or Starbucks or, Disney, and they want to adapt those big brand type cultures into their dealership or their small business or whatever type of business they're in. And it just doesn't work that way. And I'll tell you, I think it's interesting to hear your comments about when you met Rustin and all that. And you've obviously obliged, me and having me come down a couple of times and show me what you guys are doing. There's not a long list of companies that I don't think that I would have to probably think twice about wanting to join and try to help their cause. But I've told you this before, if there was the right opportunity there, I've certainly been very impressed with what I've seen. And there just aren't very many companies that I get some exposure to. And I feel like, wow, they've got a good thing going with culture. But the more that, especially this year, interesting that all this coronavirus stuff is happening. Yeah. This year for me, one of the things that I have adopted is this is the year for me of elimination and inclusion. The elimination of things and people and whatever it is that wastes my time, brings no quality, reciprocates no quality back into my life, because there are so many people that depend on us, and I know that depend on me to be my very best for, to give them high quality time, not just a few scraps from the table when I'm exhausted or I'm not focused. And so I've been reading more. I bought myself a digital piano. Shout out to Chris Hound, my longtime buddy and VP of marketing at Roland. Gave me a killer deal on this, which is in my office right over here. I try to play it multiple times every week. I'm not the best piano player, but it's therapeutic for me. But in reading, and I'll circle this back to what I think I hear, whether deliberate or not, is part of what happens at Scorpion, is great culture happens when great managers are doing a great job. And I was reading some things from Managing Yourself, which is a collection of articles from Harvard Business Review. And one of the first articles that I read, I was kind of piecemealing through, it talks about how, establishing a purpose and feeling like what you're doing matters is so tied to great managers helping people learn on a daily basis, take on greater and more responsibilities, believe and know that they're they're contributing to something bigger than themselves, like what they do matters, and that they also receive recognition. And when those things happen, it really ignites the type of culture that naturally informs your business of who you really, really are and who you want to be. But the absence of that means that your employees don't feel like they're learning. So no growth, and they don't feel appreciated, and they don't feel like they're contributing to anything that really matters. And they're never recognized. They're even just a pat on the back. And all of those things are actually more important to us even than trying to motivate people through money. So when you don't have that, you're literally sending potentially some of your people home to their spouses, to their families, to their friends, feeling like, I didn't learn anything. Does this even matter? And especially if you're the type of manager that literally has to beat people down all the time, you're literally sending people home in a state of depression that then has this unfortunate ripple effect into their lives. The opposite of that, though, however, is really one of the keys, I believe, to an authentic culture that makes people want to be there. They want to go beyond themselves and really be different for their clients, for their fellow coworkers, for their supervisors, for management. They want to be part of that. And that is by great managers leading, truly leading. If you look behind you and nobody's back there, then you're not really a leader, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you're doing the right things, you're building a trust factor and a respect factor with people that they literally will go into battle for you. And that's huge. And it sounds like that's a lot of things that are earmarks of what's happening at Scorpion from a management and leadership perspective.
It is. You mentioned a couple things. We mentioned the Disney thing. So one of the things that Rustin did a couple of years ago is he brought up the entire executive team and actually some middle management to Disney to go through their leadership week. They have their week leadership course.
Yeah, they're like Learning Institute stuff.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we learned a lot. It was honestly, from a team building perspective, just that alone, I think it was worth the value. And look, I mean, one of the things I love, I'm like you, I'm kind of a lifelong learner. I read a ton. I think sometimes I read too much because I'm a little bit ADHD, and I maybe not get as much as I can if I just slow down. But and it's a very learning culture here at Scorpion. Like people are always reading, and it's funny. We've been sitting around an article today uh, across our business leader team and our executive team, just sharing insights on it. And again, I think creating a great culture is everything you described. You just have to be really intentional about it. And I think one of the things that we learned even after the Disney thing is that, look, we're not out to be Disney, right? And we're not out to be Zappos. We're out to create kind of our own version of us, of our company, just taking away some best practices and some frameworks that we can use and that we can maybe massage into how they would work well within our business and serve our people well, but do it by at the same time being just who we are. And I do. I mean, look, we're not perfect, man. Like we screw a lot up. We talk about that a lot. I think one of the things that makes us, that's enabled us to maintain the culture we have maintained is that, we're not afraid to admit where we screwed it up. And that served us well, and that's going to continue to serve us well. And that's honestly, at the end of the day, that's as we've grown, our focus has not really been customer focus first; it's been employee first. And I know that's a cliche thing, but I've seen us make decisions over and over and over again. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, from a financial perspective, it's like, man, I don't know if that's the wisest thing to do in the short term, but we're going to bet on it because we think it'll pay dividends because we're investing in our people. And I'm really proud to work at the company for that reason alone. And we have tough times, sure. It's been stressful at times going from 150 people to 800 plus in just a handful of years. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it because honestly, just looking at the culture and the organization we've created and maintained, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something there that triggers a thought, and this, you could blend this into marketing or your brand, but I did a presentation several years ago now on branding and for car dealers. And one of the things I kind of laid out was new rules. One of which was, and probably the most important one, is care. There are a lot of things that you can kind of fake. So if you're running a company like a Scorpion, you can kind of get away with being a bit disingenuine, and there's a certain percentage of people that won't even know that you're being disingenuine. They won't know that it's fake. But you can't fake caring because it takes time. You have to be really intentional, and it requires time to prove that you care about something, someone. And that's a huge hallmark and attribute for you guys to have going on at Scorpion. So that's great. So let me recap, because anybody that might be, especially non-automotive, or maybe your automotive service, or something like that, you guys have the ability to provide a small or medium-sized business. And when we say that, you could have a pretty large-sized business and be a medium business. But
sure.
But you guys can provide them with a website, yes?
Yep, that's right.
And with a page search through, Google and really any other place where you may want to throw some dollars, Bing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the SEO side, you mentioned organic, but from a search engine optimization perspective, you guys offer SEO services?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Reputation management?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys get into anything on the local SEO where you will help them clean up citations? Okay.
Part of how we view SEO in general is, especially for local, is always includes some level of citation management cleanup.
Okay. And then paid social. So if people want to advertise on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter or wherever else they want to throw their social dollars, you guys can do that too?
Yeah, that's right.
And then I remembered this. I just want to, and I'll be brief about it, but you guys also have a proprietary system that allows the client, the business, to see down into really fine details, either at the surface level. Here's the macro view of what's going on, traffic-wise, lead generation, phone calls, like every really important business metric that you'd want to monitor at the top level, but also down into the weeds of really specifically how various keywords are performing organically, or the ones that you're paying for, like all across the spectrum. Yes?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one of the things I think that's different about us relative to most agencies is that, and I try to, when I'm explaining Scorpion to industry folks, I typically tell them that, we're really a software company with an agency sitting on top of it.
Mm.
So we build a lot of technology. So we've got our own content management system that we use to develop, deploy, and manage websites. We've got our own digital media platform that integrates with publishers like Google, Facebook, Bing, Yahoo, even doing some integration now with Yelp because they're finally starting to get wise to the fact that they need to rely on partners for advertising. And then other, programmatic networks, Simplify comes to mind, right? So we built a media platform. And of course, we built, a series of different reporting dashboards and platforms that are accessible to customers and all of our customers. Some have different needs than others. A franchise business, kind of the use case you were just describing. You think about the CMO or the CEO of a franchise, it's got 300, 500, 1,000 locations. Mm-hmm. Right? They may want to roll up all their data across all their locations into one dashboard, but they also may want to see who's doing well, right? So they have leaderboards and see who's getting the most leads, the best cost per lead, right? And then that enables them to go, well, what's going on in that market, right? What is that owner maybe doing differently that other owners are not? And it gives the customer, the brand, that level of visibility. It gives our team that visibility so that we can go dig in and that we can maybe tighten up some processes that we can then take across the entire franchise network. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, man, we've got some really great engineers, to be honest with you. And we just happen, like I said, Rustin is a very he's one of those guys, man. He's an anomaly. He's like equal parts engineer, equal parts product guy, equal parts sales and marketing guy. Mm-hmm. And he's just really passionate about helping businesses. So I think we kind of tripped our way in the services business because he just loves that part of the business. And so we've got this agency that kind of sits on top of all this great technology that we build for our clients.
It makes such a huge difference when the CEO personally has a real genuine interest in, like you said, like service businesses. You're not going to find that in what you described in his capabilities. You're just not going to find that at all over the C-suite, especially at the CEO position. Not to disparage CEOs in general, but when you find those qualities, yeah, that's huge, really huge.
Yeah.
So I would love it if one day, and who knows, this is probably in jeopardy now, but you can appreciate rock bands even from the 80s and 70s and all that, and of course the Scorpions are fantastic. But I would love it if one day. They are doing a Vegas residency. And again, that could be in jeopardy now. I don't know. But
with Queensryche.
Yes, with Queensryche, which I've seen Queensryche twice in the last year at House of Blues Dallas. So last time they came through. Anyway, I for some reason, and this is just a sidebar, I still, man, I'm a Jeff Tate guy. I don't,
same.
But I'm not a Jeff Tate guy. Anyway, that said, I would love to see someday where Scorpions, like we hired the Scorpions to play a customer appreciation party, and it's like all of your team and then all of your clients that can make it to some. That would be so awesome. Or you could do something where they play like a private event for your team and customers. Or if we have to keep live streaming stuff, I bet you those guys would take a check if you guys said, hey, we here's the environment, like no audience, but you're going to live stream this Scorpions event, and maybe you get to be the one that comes out in between a few songs and like saying stuff to rile up your customers and get them going. And then they just jump right back into there's no one like you. And they'd be like, yay, it's like no one like you, like Scorpion. We're here for you. It'd be awesome.
Oh, man. So it's funny. So you and I have an affinity for similar types of music, especially as you get into the 80s genre. But I get given a hard time by a lot of friends, specifically friends at Scorpion, because I travel a lot. I'm in Dallas, but we're headquartered in LA, or just north of LA in Valencia. So I'm back and forth a lot between offices, and I have this weird this weird draw to running in to 80s musicians in airports.
You do? I was going to ask you about it, so I'm glad. Yes.
Yeah, and of course, because like you, I follow that genre of music so closely. Like my guilty pleasure of the day is reading Blabbermouth, which if you're not familiar with Blabbermouth, you can Google it. But it's basically the TMZ of 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s rock.
Yes.
So you can catch up all your news of what those bands are doing. So, I read that a lot. So I'm familiar with a lot of who these band members are. So I'll see somebody in the airport, right? And, they stick out like a sore thumb because they're dressed like, in their leather still, like they just walked off stage in 1988. Right. I'll recognize it and I'll walk up and sometimes it's so funny because, there's like this look of like, it's a combination of surprise, shock, and sadness that they've been recognized by, like they're happy and surprised at first because it's like, that shot of adrenaline of, somebody recognized me. But then it's like, but it's a 39-year-old dude
who looks like a business professional.
Yeah. And
what's got to go through their mind is like, I'm still looking like this and doing this. And my fans, they're professionals and parents and responsible.
But man, I love it, man. I honestly, I could sit there and pick their brains. I mean, I typically just kind of say, hey, I really enjoy and appreciate your music. Maybe I'll ask for a picture every now and again, but yeah, it's cool. The latest guy that I saw, I actually didn't get to say hello to him. I really wanted to, but I saw Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top about a month ago. I was getting off a flight in LA, and that plane was turning around and going to Nashville, and Billy Gibbons was in line to board.
Wow,
so it was kind of cool.
He's played private gigs for automotive companies. He just did one at this past NADA back in February in Vegas. I've seen him. I've never met him, but I've seen him play private parties for automotive companies twice. Yeah. That he'd be a cool guy. Who else? I know you've met Dave Grohl.
Yeah, Dave Grohl. I talked to Dave Grohl for about 15 minutes outside of a sushi restaurant. Man, that was a great story. So I just hired this guy, Steve Levitt, who's on our team. He's my sales manager in LA. Great guy. And we were going to this restaurant in Encino called Katsuya. It's a sushi place, and it opens at 5:30. So we wanted to get there a little early just to make sure that that we got a seat. It's a pretty popular joint. Anyway, it's like 5:15, and we're standing in front of the place, and I'm looking down. There's this alleyway, and I'm looking, and I'm like, looks like Dave Grohl. And Steve looks up, and he's like, oh, yeah, he lives in the neighborhood too. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I've got a good friend that knows him. Like, I'll introduce you. And I'm going, oh, man, and he's with his parent, like he's with his family, his wife and his kids. So as Dave Grohl kind of gets closer, my buddy Steve's like, hey, Dave, hey, Steve Levitt, I know such and such. I can't remember the guy. And Dave Grohl looks over at us. He goes, oh, man, you're going to have to do better than that. Like you're going to have to come up with something better than that. And then he says this as he's joking, as he's walking to us. And he comes over and introduces himself. And what's crazy about it is the weekend before, this was a Monday, or maybe a Tuesday. But on Saturday, the weekend before, they played Dallas. They played the JEXA here, the amphitheater in Dallas. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they went to Shreveport, Bossier, and played in Bossier City, which is where I'm from the Shreveport area. Yeah. So I mentioned that to him. I go, oh, man, I'm actually from Dallas. And I barely missed you guys because I'd flown in from my trip the weekend before. And he's like, yeah, it almost got rained out. And then I said, yeah, and then you guys played Shreveport. And he grabs my arm. He's like, dude, I got to tell you from Shreveport. I was like, well, I'm from this really small town. He goes, I got to tell you a story. And I was like, hey, can I say a cuss word on this? Because if I
yes,
okay,
yeah,
because it's not going to be as good if I don't, right?
No,
so he's like, so we played Dallas and we went on late because it was raining and we almost thought we were going to have to cancel the show. So we were up kind of late. We had some friends and we kind of hung out. So the next day we're taking the bus and we're, driving the bus, and I get up and I'm rolling out, and I'm looking at the itinerary, like in the bus for the day. And it's like, arrive in this city, and I can't pronounce it, and I'm a little bit hungover. And he's like, I look around and I look at Taylor. He's like, Taylor. I'm like, yeah, I know Taylor. Like first name basis. Like I look over at Taylor, and I'm like, oh, this is freaking awesome. Taylor Hawkins, the drummer, by the way, for all you people that don't know. And he goes, look at Taylor, and I go, what the fuck is the Bossier City?
The Bossier City.
It's Bossier City, but he pronounced it Bossier. He's like, I didn't know where the hell we were going. He's like, somebody said, oh, it's Shreveport. And he's like, why the fuck would they call it Shreveport on there then? Like, so anyway, it was just funny, man. Anyway, super nice guy, and that was really cool. And but yeah, man, dude, it actually gets humorous after a while. I've met Dave Sabo, Snake Sabo from Skid Row. Mm-hmm. Ben Pock and I met him in Burbank once. Wow. One of the cooler ones, more recent cooler ones, was I met Jeff Pilson from Foreigner and Dokken at the Marriott in New Orleans. And what's cool about that is Jeff actually lives in Valencia, where Scorpion's headquartered. So he was familiar with our building, because we have a big signage on our building right off the freeway. So that was kind of cool. I'm like, Jeff Pilson knows who Scorpion is. It's pretty legit.
That's super.
And I've got one of my dearest friends is the drummer in a band called Better Than Ezra. And I'm a big Better Than Ezra fan, and I met him several years ago, and he and I have gotten to be really, really close buds. So it's another industry, obviously, it's just getting hammered right now with this Corona deal. And I got a lot of respect for working musicians, because so much of their income today is touring. Yeah. And they can't do that. And again, I'm not, getting the personal, but I was just talking to my buddy Michael the other night. It's in Better Than Ezra, and just to check in on him, and he's doing fine. He's doing well, but he's like, yeah, just thankful that, my wife and I have managed our income well, because, there is no income right now. And, can't tour, can't even play locally in Los Angeles where they live. Yeah. Right? Because bars and things are shut down. So, not to get too somber, because like I said, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for this, but, man, you just, I look at situations like that and situations like mine, and I'm thankful that I'm in the position that I'm in. And I'm also thankful that I'm, in a position where I can choose to be of support and help people like that too, if I want to. So that's a good position to be in, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I was actually, it's canceled obviously, but POD was supposed to play Lava Cantina tonight.
Yeah. And Jeff Tate was supposed to play House of Blues next week. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. He was going to play all of Empire, which is a Queensryche album. And he was
that's right.
All of Rage for Order. That's right.
Oh,
that's right,
man.
But they rescheduled for December, so we're going to go then. We'll check it out. Yeah,
I will definitely be that for sure.
The last one we saw together was Tom Kiefer from Cinderella, right?
That's right. We did. We've seen him twice together now.
Yeah.
We saw him when he opened for Rat.
That's right.
I think we were anticipating, because all of the stories about Rat leading up to the very show we saw him in was like, they might be a little drunk or something, slurring the words, can't get through the songs. But I thought they were great, by the way.
I did too.
But we did really have a good time though watching that Tom Kiefer band. I know like hardcore, like Cinderella fans, like probably wish that the Cinderella dudes were also like not whatever's going on with their life, that they can't still be in that band. But the guys he has and the backup singers, and his wife tours with them, they were awesome. And I remember we got a chance to meet, I don't remember, you remember her name.
Kendra, one of his backup singers, has become a friend of mine. And we all bumped into each other one night at the Southside show. And,
it was so cool. I mean, they blew Rat off the stage, in my opinion. Their playing was clean. They just sounded really, really good. And then we you ended up, striking up a friendship. And then there's another story. I don't know if you want to tell that, but like, that's another interesting thing where you meet kind of a famous person and then a semi-famous person. And then I think there was maybe a Rolling Stones thing that maybe happened or something.
Yeah. So, I got to be friends with Kendra, who's in Tom Cooper's band, and she was on American Idol, I think, before that. But and really, really cool girl, and she also recently engaged, so she checks this out. Congrats, Kendra. So she and I stay in touch, and I happen to be in LA at the same time that band was, that they were coming through LA. And we all went to the Rolling Stones together. Not all of us, but a handful of us. And we checked out the Rolling Stones together, and which was kind of cool because the bass player in that band now, in Tom Kiefer's band, used to be the bass player in Ryan Adams, not to be confused with Bryan Adams. But Ryan Adams, Bill, the bass player for Tom Kiefer, used to be in Ryan Adams' band, and they opened for the Stones back in the earlier mid-2000s.
Wow.
So he had some great stories about that tour, and it was a good time.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
So do you get to play tennis anymore?
I haven't played tennis in a few years. Again, for the listener, I played college tennis at University of Memphis. Although unfortunately, you couldn't tell it anymore. I need to get once this Corona thing clears up. I really got to get to work on that summer bod, because it's not quite where it needs to be. But I haven't played in a few years, man. Since I moved to Dallas, it's just gotten a little more difficult. There's a handful of people that I'm friends with that play in Dallas. We kind of live in different parts of the city, and we're all busy for different reasons. So it's just difficult to make it happen.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Well, there's another activity that you and I have in common, and I'm also curious to know if you get to play your drums very much. I don't know if any of your probably most of your close friends know that you're a drummer, but for the listening audience, Jamie's a drummer, just like me. I don't get to play nearly as much as I wish I did, but you get to play much? Do you still have a kit set up somewhere, or?
I do have a kit. I've got a couple kits, actually. I've got one back in Louisiana at my grandmother's house. She's kind of got an extra space that I toy around with occasionally. And then I've got some space at my house here in Dallas. I'm actually just finishing up adding on a office/studio-ish area in my house. So that'll give me a bit more space and a little bit more quiet space to play. But yeah, I still play as much as I can. I mean, it's like one of the, if there's one thing, I think everybody, if they're really honest with themselves, or not everybody, but most people would probably say that there's been a point in their life where they, maybe they missed their calling. If there's one place that I missed my calling, I think it would have been in like really pursuing my love for music, specifically drums. I just was too caught up in the, get a real job mentality back whenever there may have been that chance. But I love music, man. I love drums. I think that's one of the reasons that I love going and seeing shows. It's one of the reasons I have some really close friendships that mean a lot to me, because I really admire people that do pursue careers out of a love, out of a passion, despite what the income potential of that passion may lead to. I just have an immense amount of respect for those people, man. I think it takes, I think it's just a special relationship they've got with their craft. And I just think it takes, a lot of guts, to be honest with you.
It sure does. And I don't think most creatives, and to some extent I consider myself to be a creative person. But people who are 100%, like they are all in on being a creative, they don't probably put the thought process in place of what that means if you're going to pursue it for a lifetime, which is, it is very, very difficult to monetize whatever you are, whatever your creativity is, be it, a painter or some form of artist, whether it's musician or other, dancers. Like there's just so many different various ways of being creative. And that
Yeah.
includes, design work and artistry and all that. It doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy road or path to monetizing your creativity. In fact, for most people, it's almost unsustainable. So I agree with you. I have such a tremendous amount of respect for people that do it. And it's really, I think you and I share that as well. My path to doing something probably within the music industry was interrupted by real life. I was at a junior college playing in a group, highly involved in, understanding the ins and outs of touring and that, but that's where I met my wife. We've been together now for 28 years, and the sense of responsibility and duty, if you will, of, well, I got to do something because I love this gal and I think I want to make a family with her. And, you just start to pursue, okay, well, where are you going to go? And that took me away from, music as a pursuit. There's no regret about that, but it still lives on. That's why I ask you if you're still playing your drums. Cause, I get out to my music room to try to play drums once in a while. And I was telling you before we started rolling that I bought a new Roland digital piano this year, put it in my office. It's literally right over here, because there's something for the artist, whether you're a musician or some other form of artist or a creative person, that if you let it get too far away, you don't even feel like yourself anymore. Do you ever feel that way? Like,
man, 100%.
So I connect to really who I am. It makes me feel like I'm the best version of me when music, whether I'm listening or actually playing or participating, it makes me feel so much better. Gets me.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. And look, again, I think for me, there's just, I definitely, you made a comment a second ago. You consider yourself a bit of a creative. I definitely will validate that on your behalf. I feel like you're a bit of a creative as well, and I am to a point. I wouldn't put myself in that corner. Maybe certainly musically more than anything else. But I'll tell you this, man. Like, creatives inspire the hell out of me. Like true creatives, like people that are in pursuit of their art. Really, that becomes a platform of inspiration for me to do what I do well. And it really does. My buddy Michael, man, that plays in Better Than Ezra, he and I have gotten to be really good friends. He's probably, no, he's not probably, he's one of my top 4 or 5 friends in the world now. Mm-hmm. And he's just a super thoughtful guy. He's one of those people that when you're talking to him, you feel like he's completely focused on the conversation. And man, he's just an incredibly talented guy. The guy plays, one day he'll play a gig with Better Than Ezra, which is kind of a 90s, 2000s era rock pop band, got some great tunes in my opinion. The next day he's playing with Richard Thompson, who's kind of this amazing guitarist that's, a legend among guitar legends. The next day he's playing, with some singer-songwriter. He was doing a tour. This is a cool story. He was doing a tour in Europe back in 2019 with this really small singer-songwriter. I cannot remember her name, and I feel bad about that. But you'd never heard of her. I'd never heard of her, but she's got a little bit of a following in Europe. And he's got a buddy that plays drums for Sarah Bareilles, who's, everybody, probably familiar with her. And she's playing arenas in the U.S. And his buddy calls him and he's basically like, hey man, I got some family stuff that's come up. I need a sub for 6 shows. So my buddy goes from playing 200 people club in the UK to flying over and playing like the stadium in Denver, and does it with no rehearsal. Wow. All he's done is watch GoPro videos of a couple of shows of his buddies.
Yeah.
And listen to some tracks. And literally his first time playing with the band was during sound check.
Wow.
And you can go find videos of him playing, a couple of these shows with Sarah Bareilles, and he just kills it. So just, man, it goes to show the preparation. You can't walk into that situation not being skilled and ready to do your job.
Yeah.
And man, I tell you, dude, I get I get chill bumps, goosebumps, call them what you will, thinking about that, just not because of the fact that my buddy's there in front of, tens of thousands of people, but just, man, the dedication to his craft and the preparation that he's put in to be ready for that moment is so inspiring, man. It's so inspiring. I just love it.
I do too, man. That's so awesome. I could turn this into a much, much longer podcast today with you, Jamie Adams, but I want to be respectful of the time of yours that I've asked. And for the listening audience, I will tell you one last thing here and I've got one last question for you as I try to land the plane today. When you talk about the creativity part, I'm reminded of that part of me, the creative part, even in starting this podcast. I think people are going to get tired of me saying, because it's like a broken record of, I've been encouraged to do this type of more content, Shaun, and do a podcast for a long time, but it's time consuming. And I don't like doing things that come across amateur. I don't like being involved in things that look amateur or are. Although this isn't perfect yet, this is actually an outlet for my creativity because it allows me to have conversations with people. It allows me to kind of talk about things that, speak to that creative side. And it forces me to think of different ways to make this podcast experience an expression of my creativity. And so I'm having fun doing that because it does check the box around things in that creative world for me that feel gives me some fulfillment there. So it's kind of fun. Last thing I want to ask you, you may have heard or seen me post things where I will use the hashtag be the difference. I talk about that a lot. I don't think we're living in a more important time right now for people to really think about how they can be the difference in the world, whether it's to immediate friends and family or something that's even on a larger scale. So I try to end every podcast with asking my guest that question. How would you encourage other people, whether it's the way you're doing things or the way that you think the world gets to be a better place, where we come back to the middle and we have more compassion and care and concern, and we start to strip away all the labels and just be people to each other? What are some of the things or something that you think would be a good attribute to be the difference in the world, especially nowadays?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. Look, I think I started, one of the things that I've done the last few years is I started working with different coaches. It started really more on a professional capacity. I hired a guy a few years ago to help with kind of develop some sales training methodology for our team here at Scorpion. And that bled into him kind of staying on and working with me and some other people on our executive team and just executive leadership coaching. And then this year, when I went into 2020, I started writing down my goals for 2020. I started seeing some blind spots, some goals that I had, but some areas of just improvement that I need to make in order to hit those goals. And I hired a guy named Bob Goff. And if you don't know who Bob Goff is, I would encourage you and your listeners to go just check him out. Follow him on Instagram, follow him on Twitter. Especially if you're a faith guy, faith gal, and I say faith, I mean, if you're a believer in Christ, like I happen to be. But even if you're not, I mean, Bob's just outlook on life is really, really interesting. This is a guy that I just have followed for a while. And the reason that I hired him is because I'm a kind of guy, I just want to do a lot of things. But I want to do things that are really meaningful, right? Like really, really impactful and meaningful. Both to the immediate people around me, but also I want to have an impact on a broader scale, ideally globally at some point. And I'm still trying to figure out if that's in the plan for me, but I feel like it is. But in the course of trying to do more in order to be able to make that level of impact, what I started to realize is that I was losing myself a little bit in the process. And I was not always present in the things that I was doing at the time I was doing them because I was thinking about the other things I need to be doing. And I'm still struggling with that. But the reason I hired Bob is because from all accounts, people I know who have had interaction with him, he does a ton, but he's always present in what he's doing. And one of the things that Bob is tells me time and time again, and even you mentioned this earlier, is that we don't always have a lot of things, but one of the things that we almost always have is time. Mm-hmm. And time can be 30 seconds, time can be hours. But you can always make a little bit of time to spend with people that probably need it. And they probably don't need as much as you think they need in order to really just hear or feel something special and unique from you. And so I think time is my answer to that question. Mm-hmm. What can you do? What can you give? You can give time. Mm-hmm. And present time. And I say that not from a place of authority either. Like, that is something that I have to work on and have to be really intentional about. Mm-hmm. But it's been a challenge, and I see that when I do choose to do it, when I choose to give time, I choose to be present in that time, that it has a greater impact, and it makes me feel a lot better about what I'm trying to accomplish in the moment, and what I'm trying to accomplish, when I look back on my life, hopefully 30, 40, 50 years from now. So that's my answer.
I love it. Your answer is actually one of the very powerful 5 love languages. That book has been out for a long time.
That's
I think
right.
Gary Smalley. But
yep.
quality time is for some people that actually is their most profound and felt language of love, and that means that somebody knows that you care. You can't fake that. So quality time is huge. It's very, very huge. So love that, man. This has been so awesome. I want you to do me a favor, not here on the podcast while we're still live, but I want you to text me your address, whether you want it work or home, but text me your address. I want to send you something that I think you'll appreciate.
All right.
And it's relative to some things that you've shared in this conversation. To the listening audience and to the viewers, always gratitude and thanks, because you've given us some of your time to listen to a conversation that hopefully you have found has given you a little bit of sunshine in your life today. Perhaps you've learned a couple of things. If you're ever interested in digital marketing, you happen to be one of those small to medium-sized businesses, you definitely should look at Scorpion. Not that the podcast is all about just promoting companies, but Jamie Adams is a great person to know, even if you don't do business with this company. And again, it's with great thanks that you we appreciate that you've joined us today. So now we know what's going on with Jamie Adams, and until the next episode, be the difference that the world is dying for.